You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. All right, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Today, I'm really excited. We have someone who has kind of experienced exponential growth in their roofing and now solar companies through in a very short amount of time. The gentleman isn't even 30 years old, and he's really taken a leap forward in the way he's doing business and the growth that he's had. And so I want to introduce Tyler Jack of ProStruct Roofing, or ProStruct Construction, ProStruct Solar down in Arizona area. And Tyler, if you could just tell our audience a little bit about how you got started in this business and how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate you having me on the show. It means a lot to me. I know my staff watches your show very regularly, so it's a big honor to be here. Thank you so much. So getting started, right? It's always such an interesting tale because so many people have so many different ways on how they got into the roofing industry. But more than likely, they all know somebody that has done roofing. And I think that's what you told me when you and I were speaking, is that you knew somebody that did roofing and then you ended up in the roofing industry, more or less.
That's right.
So with my story, it was very much the same way. I was working a dead-end job at a phone sales place that was not extremely promising for my career. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and so they said, I said, you know what, Tyler, you sound like a phone sales rep from Phoenix. And I said, well, that's who you hired. So I don't really know what you want from me. But nevertheless, I got laid off from that job, and I seek something else. And one of the buddies that, one of my friends at the time, he was going in for an interview for a canvassing job at this roofing company here locally in Phoenix. And I said, hey, I know this sounds really weird, but would you mind if I went to your interview with you? Could you ask the guy if I could interview too? Maybe if they're hiring any other positions? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So he called them, lined it up. I showed up day one, hopped in the van, and they said, cool, you're selling roofs. Let's go. I said, all right, done deal. And so then we started knocking on doors in the middle of summer in Phoenix. It was 115 degrees outside, and we're just kind of like, here, go for it. This is what we're doing. So gradually, I became like a sponge. I saw all these people that were in roofing and they were doing well. They had families and children and, a house and all these different things. And I'm like, there's something to this. And I know that. So I said, well, I'm going to act like a sponge and try to learn as much as I can. So I stuck in canvassing for about 9 months, did that and saved up as much money as I could in order to kind of make that leap to sales myself. And once I did, it just kind of took off. So it took off. We started working with other companies in other states and really helping out. The person that I worked for at the time had a lot of connections with other people that were, doing roofing in Kansas or the Midwest or all over the place, Pennsylvania, all these different areas. And we went in and we kind of helped out their organization and brought a couple salespeople and brought the way that we did things. And it was really cool. I gained a lot of experience during that time. Worked all across the Northwest as well. I think about 10 different states in general over the course of a couple of years. So it was always on the go, on the move, a new apartment for 6 months at a time.
Life on the road with a new hail swath to
Yes, very much so. But I'm really thankful for it because I learned a lot. I was away from my family and that was really hard, but I learned a lot during that time because I was just fully immersed. And that's kind of my advice for anybody that's getting into this, is just, if you are going to get into it, just fully immerse yourself in it. Get into it 100%. Go all in, just give it an honest try. And if it still doesn't work for you at that point, then try to do something else. But At that time, I worked for a couple different organizations and did some back end work, and had been in roofing for a few years before I started my own gig, and just kind of started my own outfit because I was just kind of, I was more concerned about how I can help more people. And I knew that if I could just focus on myself and my own practice and what I was doing, and I had control from beginning to end, I could hopefully affect more people for the better. And I said, I don't care if it's just me, that's totally fine. I'll just do my thing, and got a little bit of a following. And now we have, we have about 3 office spaces, and we're in 4 different consistent markets, and we have an employee base of 70. So
That's
this
awesome,
was
man.
about about 2.5 years. That's
Two
kind
and
of
a
happened.
half
So
years with 3 office spaces, 70 employees. I mean, that's like you're moving there. Like you're really pushing hard there. And what I heard from you, first of all, that I think that sometimes it comes from the hustle of the canvasser, right? If you
mm-hmm.
start in that position, man, that is that's a you're door knocking, you're moving along. And you get that understanding that you have that it takes a lot of activity
Yeah.
to produce results in for yourself, for your own commissions, or for your for your business. And I think that's an interesting starting point. You also said that you, in starting the new company, that you really wanted to focus on helping more people and more more homeowners in that area. So what is your unique selling proposition? How do you position how do you position ProStruct in the eyes of the consumer that sets you apart from everyone else?
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is a huge thing that we focus on. So number one, our culture. We've really taken an emphasis on that. So our our age demographic is about 32 on average, I would say, something like that. So we're already against the norm, right? We're already people that aren't expected at the door. We're typically going up against guys that are definitely a long time our senior in the industry. So we have to have that competitive edge. And one thing that's really set us apart is that we utilize a lot of technology in what we do. So I'm sure that you can tell behind me by the quad screen I have, but like
That's right.
we use a lot of technology. Everything that we do can be done on our phones. From a CRM to file storage to communication to our website, and we just kind of fully immerse these people. We do all of our diagrams on we draw them all out on our phones. We can do everything from a cell phone. So that's number one. It's extremely easy to use, and everybody always has all their tools on them. So that's all means that we're coming to the job prepared 100% of the time. Second thing is that we really cater to a specific demographic of people. And what I mean by that is that we know we're not going to capture every single job. We understand that. We like to install typically usually a higher grade roofing system. So I mean, we're going above and beyond manufacturer specs and IRC specs for anything that we're doing, to ensure that the client's not going to experience a leak, and that gives us the referrals. There's nothing worse that could happen than installing a new roof for somebody that maybe didn't even have a leak before. They just had some missing shingles on their house, or some damaged shingles, and then all of a sudden it leaks again, and that really tarnishes credibility. So we like to build above and beyond and kind of future proof a lot of these roofing systems that we're doing, which is really neat. We're going to, we're using a lot of additional ice and water shield, which isn't required at all in Phoenix.
Yeah.
It is in our northern markets in Arizona, but we're using that on all of our sidewall flashings. We're doing it on all of our valleys. We're doing it on all of our pipe jacks. Any vent, anything like that. Upgraded ridge, upgraded shingles, so on and so forth. It's a top grade system, and that's what we install. And so we know that if someone comes to us and they say, well, this guy's $100 underneath you, and I was like, look, if $100 is going to make or break this deal for you, like, I'm sorry, I'm out. Because we're going to ensure that you have a system that's going to last you for life, and I think that's well worth that $100.
So I always like to talk about how people buy when value exceeds price,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that seems to me what you just said, that you are able to explain, for your salespeople, only 70 salespeople now are able to explain the value in your build. you know,
Hmm.
in what you're doing above and beyond the other contractors in the area. And you know, you're not in a not you're in a competitive market there, right? So having the, you know, so it doesn't sound like you're competing on price.
No, no, we're not. So there's this kind of joke going around our office, and that is you can't shop a good attitude, right? So something that we always try to do is that we try to keep things upbeat. You know, we try to keep things free flowing. We try to engage with people and see what their interests are, see why they actually want a roof. You know, why something like this would interest them, what their family dynamics like. Why did you choose this house? You know, these are a lot of important questions because every roofing system that we do is different and it's catered to the individual. I can't take one system and just throw it, you know, at this house and have it work the same way as it would on another roof. It's just not going to happen. So we're more so catering towards those people where they need us, and you know, we're not going to turn people away. Obviously, our objective is to be as helpful as we can. But the people that are shopping price and nickel and diamond, all right, well, I'll buy the materials and you install it. And look, I don't want to do it. I'm sorry,
That's
but
not what we
you know,
do. Yeah.
right. I want to ensure that the entire system is installed correctly. And that's my duty, and that's the brand, and that's the name I stand behind.
So how do you get to these? I know. Well, I mean, from a canvassing background, I'm assuming that's one of your largest lead generation strategies. Maybe I'm wrong, but what you know, on top of canvassing, what other types of marketing do you do for ProStruct?
Oh, geez, we do it all. So we started with knocking doors, right? Because
Yeah.
knocking doors is free and easy. And I have to tell you, I have like 50 of these Nike black dry fit polos, and I wear them all the time. I actually took all of my other shirts and I gave them away. I
Yeah.
donated them because what was happening was I was driving around town and I'd see a roof that I needed to knock the door. And I'd be, oh, but I don't have my clothes on. There was always excuses to not knock the door, not engage with the client, not do all these things. So I removed them. I just took the oxygen out of the room for myself. So knocking doors is a huge thing. We like to do so not in a way of just kind of blasting a shotgun in the middle of the neighborhood and seeing where it lands. We like to take a strategic approach to that. So our approach is we spend usually the beginning part of the day when people aren't home prospecting. And that's when we're looking at the homes, we're seeing who's going to qualify. We want to see what doors we're going to want to knock later on when people get home, and we pin them all to a map. So, you know, in Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever you use, you can just kind of drop a pin, tag the house, and then you can go back and view them. And that's what we've been doing. So we've just been dropping them and tagging them and then going back. And then we spend those prime time hours, that sacred window of you know, closing deals and securing new clientele, actually doing that. So the worst thing that we can do during that time is to drive around and look for more houses. We always want to have those people hit. And if you run out of those, then you can go to your follow-up because I mean, 90% of people don't even make the second call, you know, don't even follow up once.
That's
And
right.
to even see the third follow-up call is even more just remote than that. So that's really where we focus with the door knocking. But we have a lot of different other ways of marketing as well. Um, Actually, this is a very interesting time that this is being filmed and you and I are talking because there's currently a stay-at-home order in effect for where we are in Phoenix. So
And
a
most
lot
other
of people,
places. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, and it's actually ending today, but for
All
us,
right.
um, but I think that it's a very interesting time, right? Because I don't think this is a time that we can knock doors. And so we've seen that be a big market disruptor. And when we're looking at advertising, we start to think about the way that people are going to respond to us and how we can engage with them. Number one, in a safe manner, but number two, in an effective manner. If you were to knock on somebody's door right now, they'd probably tell you to get lost. Like, what are you doing here? I can't believe you're at my house. This is ridiculous. So we had to find other ways to get a hold of them. And that was the first thing that we really sat down and powwowed about as a team when this all occurred and we officially got a stay-at-home order on the horizon. It was like, okay, how are we going to reach new people now? And I think that a buddy of mine, he posted a really inspirational line, and it said, when the fishermen can't fish, they repair their nets. And
Yeah.
so we looked at all the things that were passing through our nets and how we can build this better, you know, a better net. And so we started working with a lot of referrals from our existing clients. Number one, reaching out to people. We started email and text campaigns. We actually just built a phone room of people that reached out to prospects, whether they're existing clients or they're people that have inquired about a roof, or it's just some phone numbers from any sort of lead gen service, something like that. So we've been able to call a lot of those. Social media marketing has been really, really big for us. Targeted ads, really nailing down those age demographics and seeing ways to be very helpful to people. We found that our ads and our posts weren't people weren't responding really well to it when it said things like call now or a free inspection. When I was like, yeah, people know that. Like, if you're a roofer, they know that you offer free inspections. You don't need to tell anybody that.
That's right.
More than likely you're going to fit that mold. But we had to look at, why are we posting this? What is the root cause behind what we're doing? How can this help somebody? How can what we say or what we do or what we post or what we offer help somebody? And, this is an interesting time to where people need a lot of financial assistance. A lot of people lost their jobs. So we're really looking at, how can we work something out to either, save somebody money and might be working with an insurance carrier to ensure that their roof is taken care of, or work with some sort of financing and lay something out with somebody to really break it down on really, really tiny payments to where, they can be protected, but also not be impacted.
Definitely. And I want to go back to a couple of things that you said. The first thing that you said, it was about, essentially, you wear a uniform every day now.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason you wear a uniform every day is to remove excuses.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way that you put that. So, what are some excuses that you find your salespeople have, staff, employees, things like that, and what are the things that have you done to put into your processes to remove those excuses, similar to you, keeping the shirt with you?
Yeah. So let's start with the beginning part of that. What are the excuses? When it comes to sales, there are a lot.
A lot.
I can talk myself out of just about anything.
Yep.
So I'm too tired. I'm not hungry. I'm not ready to knock the door. I need to do this. Oh, I need to work on the CRM. I need to update the notes. That's a big one. That happens all the time. I need to write a supplement right now. David, can you hit that? Sorry, something's popping up on my screen. I need to write a supplement right now. I need to be speaking with an insurance adjuster, and it's a prime time window. It's 4 p.m. You're like, nobody's gonna answer your call. Gosh, what else is there? It's too hot. It's too cold. I don't feel right. I'm sick. My stomach hurts. I need an energy drink. I have too much energy. Now I'm jittery. It could just go on and on and on and on and on. And then to counteract a lot of those, I think that we ask our people to just start. Like, look, whatever you're doing, just start. You're going to have a lot harder time slowing yourself down once you have the momentum already going than if you didn't start at all. So it's what is that line? It's just like just eat the frog, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Yeah. There's no use just sitting there staring at it.
Book on that. If you haven't read that book, it's an awesome book, especially if you're in the sales side of things. Go read the book, Eat the Frog. That's a good one, because it definitely it's around that concept of just do it, and maybe start with the hardest thing that you're procrastinating on most. Right? Do that one first. That's make your list and go, man, I don't want to do that one. Start with that one. Get through it, exactly. Right? Get through it.
It puts a lot of power behind it, and I think you got to have fun with it, right? It's like, you try to see how many no's you can collect. If you're getting stopped by gatekeepers all the time at businesses or whatever, you just, they're like, look, I told you not to call me back again. And you're like, well, I hadn't received my full quota of no's for the day, so I figured I'd call and get you another one in. Yeah. People kind of loosen them up.
You are of the younger generation, right? It's like, oh, I can't get through this video game. I find another way, right? You just keep going. It's the gamification of what we do on a daily basis. I think you can make games out of these things of, like you said, how many no's can you get, right? How many no's can you get in a day? If you make that a game, that's something that'll get you through, right? Because now you're not feeling that no as a negative impact on you. You're like, all right, got another one. Moving on to the next door, right? Like, let's keep going.
And it's a numbers game too at that point, because you're also looking at, like, Well, what are my closing percentages?
That's
I
right.
mean, every person that's out there that's full-time sales should know what their closing percentages are. I knock this many qualified people or talk to this many qualified people, this many of them close. So therefore, or this many say yes. So therefore, I'm getting all my no's out of the way. Look at
That's
that.
right.
I'm going to have an awesome day today because I'm getting all my no's out of the way and it's not even prime time yet.
I
It's
had this
awesome.
conversation earlier today, uh, where let's say 10% of the doors you knock turn into a deal, right? Just to make the
Mm-hmm.
math easy. Well, you don't know if it's the first 10, the last 10, middle 10. You don't know if there's 3 here, 1 there, 5 there, right? You don't know where those 10 are in that 100, but you really don't know where they are in the 1,000. So go knock the 1,000 and find the 100 instead of trying to find the 10 out of the 100. If you increase that activity, and what I liked about what you said earlier to speak to another that kind of ties into that is you talked about optimizing time.
Mm-hmm.
You speak to that a little bit more of how you're optimizing the team's time. I know you
Yeah.
said that they're, kind of the time frames, but what can people do to optimize their prospecting time?
So time management is a big thing of mine, right? I should rephrase that. Time ownership is a big deal of mine. I don't want to manage time. I don't want to manage the world. I want to own it. So like thinking big like that. So for me, I look for where I can have the unfair advantage and still remain incredibly ethical. And what that means to me is I look at what people aren't willing to do. What aren't you willing to do? I'm willing to get my hands dirty. I'm willing to go all the way. And if you're not, you're gonna have a hard time. So I look at I'm gonna get up earlier than anybody else. I'm gonna be the first one up in my industry, the first one up in my city, the first one up in my organization. I'm gonna be the first one here, first one to the office, first one cooking. Early bird gets the worm. Your parents have probably told you that 1,000 times, and
Yep.
boy, is it true. I'm a night owl too, so it's hard on me. It's real hard. But I mean, I get up every day about 4 o'clock, 4 a.m., 4:30, something like that, and I start with audiobooks, and I schedule it out. So my day is structured to the 15-minute increment. And I keep a calendar. I keep an online calendar. But I think the thing that separates the way I do it from the way a lot of other people do it is I go back and I change my times. I change them to where I accurately finish those things. And then at the end of the day, I go back through and I audit my day and I look at what I did. It's like, man, I was really successful today. What was that recipe that I did over here? Wow, I'm going to spend a lot more time doing that at that time block than any other time because it has proved to be successful. I think having that evaluation and auditing your time is great. So that's a practical that I like to do all the time. I like to audit my time. If I have white space in my calendar, I mean, to me, that's the devil. That's when, man, you want to see bad things happen. Just leave a bunch of white space in your calendar. I mean, it'll find something to go do. It's the reason that ATMs are open past midnight.
That's right. And that speaks to a point, if you think of really high achieving people, right? Maybe like a professional athlete, right? They're going back and watching tape. How did we do? They're watching their practices. They're practicing. They're figuring out the best way. Oh, that worked well. That didn't work well. But sometimes you don't know what works well unless you try it, right? So you have to do it and then try it. But going back and reviewing is not, it's not a common practice for people as individuals, right? It happens in sports and in things like, in a lot of things like that. But bringing something like that into your daily routine, that's amazing, man. That really speaks volumes because you're trying to achieve a new level of everything that you're doing on a consistent basis. I love that. That's awesome.
Thank you. It's
Um,
about optimization. I
yeah,
think that we try not to rise to the level of expectation. We try to fall into the high level of training. And so if we keep training on the hardest thing, that's why we pitch each other all the time. That's why we go back and forth and we're like, let me hear you close. Let me hear you close. Close me again. Close me again. It's just because, if I keep practicing that, it becomes second nature. And I'm going to get my worst critic with my peer, my coworker, my boss, whatever it is. I'm going to get my worst critic with them. And when I'm out in the field and I'm talking to a client, I'm just like, there's no problem. You don't have more objections for me? Come on. I was hoping you'd have a little bit more for me.
yep. And that's where I trained in kickboxing and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and things like that, and been around some high level mixed martial artists, and the concept in fighting, in boxing or kickboxing or mixed martial arts, you have a training camp, right? You have this training camp, a 4-week, a 6-week, 8-week training camp, whatever it is, and you're building to peak at that particular time when you're going into that fight.
Yeah.
And then, but when you go into that fight, your hope is that the training that you did was so hard that the fight was easy. And that sounds exactly like what you talked about there when you're working it in the office with your peers and they're giving you a hard time, right? They're challenging you. They're throwing out, obscure objections that, you have to take and handle and things like that. That builds those skills that when you get to that door, when you get to that kitchen table, you have a much better opportunity for sure. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. It's cool, calm, and collective. You want to go into battle just knowing like, hey, I'm comfortable here. Like
Yep.
this is nothing to me. This is the stuff that I do every day. And I think that customers like seeing that because, and as well as peers and if you manage anybody, they like seeing that too, because that inspires confidence.
Yeah.
When you go subsonic in areas that are normally really high tension and high pressure and above the shoulder energy, it's just like, wow, you become the leader. They just point to you. They're like, that guy is going to bring us out of this.
That's right.
You're like, I got it. No problem.
So going back to another thing that you said was, you've changed a lot of focus in different ways to adapt to what is going on in the current climate of the coronavirus, and all of the different ways that people are really going to have to interact during this time. But one of the things that you said is you changed some of your marketing messaging, right? Like you said, everyone knows that they can get a free inspection, right? And so what you had said was you changed it to how can we help? And I really love that, because that's what we did when this came about, when the coronavirus COVID-19 stuff happened. That was my first thought too. So I love the way that you changed your thought process in that manner. The first thing I did is I thought, what do roofing contractors need at this time? So, you go back to some previous episodes of the podcast here. We did one on, how to survive and survive the coronavirus, the COVID crisis, and then thrive afterwards. I had a guest on talking about SBA loans and some advice on that and how to get, what was available to people and what was, how to get that. I had AccuLinks, one of the operations director over at AccuLinks, on to talk about how to turn, use your CRM and make your business a little bit more virtual. And then I had a friend of mine, our sales coach, Adam Bensman, on talking about how to change your sales pitch during that. So I'm just like, we're just trying to provide as much value as possible. And so you said you changed your messaging to how can we help? And you do a lot of you're doing a lot of social media marketing. So what are some things in your social media marketing that you can, that someone can do that brings out, that kind of answers those questions of how can we help, right? What are the homeowners thinking of at this time? You had mentioned financing, things like that. What are things that are resonating in the marketplace for you?
So something that's hitting really hard for us, we have a monsoon season. So there's a particular time during the middle of the year where we get the majority of our storms and rain and all that. Yep. And we're nearing that. And that's summer for us. That's like mid-July-ish. Yep. So what we look at is a lot of people in our market and evaluating those market trends, they start to prep for that event. Right. When I was growing up, it was just normal. It was commonplace to bring out the pots and pans when it rained because water came through the roof inside. And that's just what mom did, So I didn't know any better than that. And I think a lot of other people don't know any better than that. So I think that's looking at these types of services that are going to provide you a long-term client base. So maybe you go out and you do temporary repairs and you say, you know what, it's on the house. Just give me a call when this thing's ready. You apply a little silicone, when you do an inspection and you go out and, hey, maybe that roof can't be replaced yet, or maybe it's just not time. Go above and beyond, it's checking for the jiggly doorknob, when you're opening somebody's door. Hey, you want me to fix that for you real quick? That person may never do business with you, but you are going to have a raving fan for life.
Yes.
Excuse me. And that person is going to just go out of their way to refer you to anybody that they know. Oh my gosh, how's your roof? Do you need a roof? I know a guy. Everybody loves to know a guy. So be that guy. That's number one. Number two, the value is, obviously we're talking about some financial stuff. Maybe you have a program where you can offer some cash back for something.
Yeah.
That might be huge for somebody that's like, man, I can't pay for groceries not right now. What are you talking about? A roof? I can't even think about that. You know, my fiance used to teach in Title I schools, and how do you make a kid do homework when he doesn't know where his meal's coming from? You know, you can't. It's not. It's like it's not realistic. So, I think we look at that as well as you know, where do our people need us, and what is our demographic? Who are they? How can we cater to them, and what do they need? You know, for us, it was like they needed somebody to be honest with them, and that honesty was like, I just need to know what it's going to be. I need to know what it's going to cost. Why do I have to have 6 different roofers out to my house and put together an average to figure out what this thing's actually going to cost me and know I'm getting a fair price? That's ridiculous. I should be able to shop this much easier than that. And I think that when you don't provide that value, when you don't provide those upfront answers, people feel taken advantage of. And that's not a good feeling. You know, if you're shopping online for a car and you're like, well, what's the price? So like, well, it might be 20 grand or it might be 30 grand. It's like, well, which one is it? Is it 20 grand or 30 grand? Are we supposed to meet in the middle? Is this how this works? Like, I don't even know. I mean, a lot of people usually don't have to shop for a roof multiple times. You know, that might be something that they do, yeah, depending on if they live in a bad storm area or something, but that's usually something that they hopefully can only do a couple times in their lifespan. So I think being that guiding force through that is huge.
Definitely. So what kind of, you do a lot of Instagram, Facebook? Where do you do a lot of your social media marketing? And
So we did do some Facebook campaigns. I think looking at the message that you're trying to say is more important sometimes than where you put it, because people will find a way to put it there. So, one thing that we realized a little bit ago was our website and our social profiles were acting as a resume. And that was great for credibility, but it was very shallow in terms of marketing, as far as marketing went, because we were capturing the people that we visited, but we weren't capturing people that we didn't visit. So the majority of our deals came from people that we already talked to. And because we looked so credible online, they did business with us, because everybody's going to do their due diligence. So we wanted to look at how do we get more people out there in the marketplace. And that is, you know, very creative avenues like trying to answer questions. One thing we did recently is we filmed a bunch of segments on answering questions that people typed into Google search query. And we filmed responses to all those, like, how much does a roof cost on a 1,500 square foot home? We answered it and we broke it down. And we provided value to that because, you know, people during this day and age, you know, it's become a very digital marketplace. You know, people have learned to shop digitally, so they want to find their answers digitally. And a lot of times they want to find that without having to talk to a person and be sold. You know, so they want to find their answers organically, and if they do, it comes to them in much more truth than if you say it or I say it. So those heartfelt posts, you know, we did some stuff with the community, collaborating with other local businesses. You know, maybe you work with a PA or another roofing company or a general contractor. Maybe you do a little bit more B2B sales. You hop on LinkedIn a little bit more, see people that are in your marketplace. You know, hey, maybe general contractors are building a huge development of new homes. Well, those homes are going to need roofs. So maybe you should reach out to that person. That should be your new best friend. You should, hey man, you know, let me buy you a cup of coffee. Let me take you out to lunch. What do you want from me? Nothing. I just want to bend your ear. I want to see how you do this because I think it's incredible and I think you're inspiring. And it's like, if you can have that even value trade to where people are coming to you for things, then that's great. And I think that's a perfect example of what you do. You know, people come to you for value. People come to you as a thought leader and a thought authority because you provide content to these people that is useful to them. Right? So, and you do that without charging a fee to get in. You don't need to admit one in order to watch this video, which is the coolest thing. And it attracts people to you because they feel like there's an exchange and that you've invested in them. Therefore, they're a lot more willing to invest in you.
definitely. And it is, you know, that's one of the great things about this is we just get to provide so much value to, you know, to people in the roofing industry. And, you know, by the way, we do own a digital marketing agency that works with roofing contractors. You know, that is part of what we do, but the value that we get to provide is great. And one of the things that you'd mentioned, okay, so you're answering these questions. This is how simple it is. This is how simple it is. You went to Google and you just Googled kind of the most common questions that asked, and you could probably just start typing and
Roofing.
and Google will give you like 5 things that it thinks you're typing, right? That you may want answers to. And in doing that, you can answer the most commonly asked questions of the consumer, and then of the consumer in your area. I like to talk to roofing contractors and their, the owners or salespeople, right? And there's a simple question: is what do people ask you most often? It's really simple.
Um,
It's a
yeah, it
simple
is.
thing. That's all you have to do. And if
Oh,
you're,
sorry, I was going to answer it.
oh yeah, we'll go to that.
Go
So
ahead.
if you've never thought of it, here's a chance, right? Here's an opportunity. Sit back, take 5 minutes, sit back and think for 5 minutes. What are the most common asked questions? And then when you're out in the field, when you're at the kitchen table, not anymore, when you're on your Zoom call or on your phone call with the customer, now just have that as a conscious thought in your mind. I get this question all the time. Write that down, film a video, write a blog post, whatever you're comfortable with, and put it out there. So that's a great thing. So now let's answer that question. What is the most commonly asked question or questions that you guys get?
I would say it's very revolved around price. It's how much does a roof cost? I think having that answer queued up is going to be really, really important. So we get asked that so often that we built an algorithm around it. We actually, for everything that we do, every type of roofing material, every different type of home, like we've got this calculator that we can hit on the fly. And it's just a little Excel doc and it works really well. And we're working on integrating it in other places. But we can type in, however big the home is or whatever these questions are. I need this many squares of roofing. What's it going to cost me? Boom, pop it in. Well, it's going to be about whatever, this price. And that's really cool. And I think having a competitive price point where you're not dipping too low is really important. Is, have a level of consistency. I want to be able, if I'm going to mystery shop you and call your office 5 different times, right, with 5 different voices or whatever, 5 different people, and they gather all of the quotes that they get from your organization, they should be within like a couple $100 of each other, right? They shouldn't vary too much based on what the client said and what they wanted. And having that level of consistency is that, like, that's brand recognition. That's you become now that thought leader in your space, where you're like, it should cost this. And I think the thing that we look at in terms of the value add of what is a roof cost is we look at, well, what are you getting and what are you not getting? Are we comparing apples to apples? That was the number one conversation that I got in any storm market period. It was, it was people that had their insurance estimate and they were holding it close to their chest. And they said, look, I don't want to show you this. I don't want to show you this. I want your estimate. And I said, look, I'll do you one better. I'll measure your roof. I'll do all my stuff. I'll get my estimate together. I'm going to print it out in my truck. I keep a mobile printer in my truck. I'm going to print it out, and we're going to go through line by line, compare apples to apples, and I'm going to highlight any differences. I'm going to take off anything you don't want. Sound fair enough? Most of the time, they'd be like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I want. I'm like, okay, perfect. And the majority of the time, we would redline all those things, and we'd say, okay, look, this is the reason that my estimate is so much higher than maybe what your insurance is paying out, or maybe what the other local contractor has. But here's what you're not getting. I think you should get that. Let me help you get that. That was the value add performance, right?
Definitely. And that is people's number one. It's always price, right? And one of the things I saw recently was that, and this is kind of to what you guys are doing over there, your philosophy is that people make about 70% of the buying decisions before they ever talk to someone these days, right? Before they pick up the phone, they're doing all of their research, and there is enough information out there for your customers to find. Would you rather have them find that roofing cost calculator on Home Advisor, or would you rather have them find it on your website or through your social media posts or your YouTube channel explaining how prices go down? And, I know everyone gets, well, Home Advisor says it's X amount per square and square foot, X amount per square foot, Home Advisor says, right? And they don't understand the subtle differences in what you're doing versus what, especially in the way that you guys are putting the value in your roof and going above and beyond in your builds. So that's that's something to, to take heed of, is answer those questions for the clients before someone else does. Um,
Right.
um,
That's a big deal. I mean, I'm really glad you brought that up, Jim, too, because I mean, that's something that we talk about all the time. Is that if you don't tell them, they're going to get their information somewhere else.
yep. And that's what happens. So you had said that you guys are starting to be more kind of to build out the kind of the being able to attract clients to your website, that your website and social media was more of to build the trust of the people that you already had contact with. Um, what did you do to build that trust? Do you have any special initiatives to build like your online reputation through reviews? How have you gone about that?
So, I mean, a big thing that we look at is it doesn't it doesn't hold a lot of depth and weight when we're telling people how great we are. Like that, they're only going to take that so far. They're going to take that with a grain of salt. So what we have to look at is how do you get other people to recommend you? But number one is great reviews. Like that's an instant thing, right? But we found interesting different algorithms with a lot of different organizations that do reviews online. And I'm sure a lot of people know, I mean, the ones, right? They come to your mind right now. They're just like, yep, I know them. I pay those people. I don't pay these people. I pay these people. And we look at how the person is getting information. So I think organic ways on how they can gather information about you is great. A review is cool, right? But you know what means more? A testimonial. You know what even means more? A video testimonial with a client with you talking to them. That's huge. That's like up here, next level. That's what you should be doing. So, we looked at what does our filming process look like? Whose detail is that? In every organization, the person that wears all the hats is usually the owner until they can delegate that task, right?
Yeah.
You are the owner and the technician, one and the same. But the objective should be to get yourself out of a technician role. So you hire specialty people when you can afford them and have that initiative to do so. So what we look at is we always measure everything on a CPA. Is what is our cost per acquisition for every single campaign? We track everything. We are infatuated with data. I mean, from different phone numbers for every single ad to on the vehicles to anywhere. I mean, people need to see your logo 7 times and hear about you 7 different times before they'll ever remember your name. So if I keep that in mind, is how do I get the information in front of them? How do I expose myself to them in a way that seems natural, commonplace? It's not going to be so in an ad. If I hop on an ad and I'm like, do you need a roof? Call me. I do roofs. It's like, yeah, all right, buddy. Next, scroll up, or next on the timeline. But the thing that I would want to see is engaging posts. I want to engage clientele. I want to engage people. I want to go in places where people are engaging about their maybe some home improvement forums. Maybe I'm trying to be helpful and I'm a thought authority on some of those private Facebook groups or whatever. Just getting out there in a way that could add a lot of value is huge. And I think your clientele will reflect that. So when it comes to reviews, I like to not prompt for them. That's just my thing. I don't ask people for reviews. I think it's a little in bad taste, right? If you do a phenomenal job, people will review you. And if you emphasize that, like, hey, a lot of my business is based upon referrals. Would you happen to know anybody? That's a big deal for me, because to me, someone sitting down at a kitchen table with their friend over dinner or, drinking some wine or whatever, and they're talking about, yeah, I just got my roof done by this really great builder. Have you had your roof inspected? That's going to go a lot further than a 5-star review on Google.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. And what you said, there's levels to it, right? There's levels to that review, and the conversation at your customer's dinner party is very impactful, right? A video of them talking about the amazing job that you did, that's also really, that's maybe next level down, right? That's extremely impactful also. And then that review on Google or your Facebook page, things like that, it kind of starts to go down. Like that's great. People do count on reviews. They really trust online reviews. But what they would trust even more is is their friend or family member at the dinner table. What they trust even more than just simply the review is that video testimonial on your website. That's great, man. That's awesome. One of the things you mentioned there is that you guys get really detailed in tracking your CPA, right? Cost per acquisition, customer acquisition cost. This is the topic that this is a conversation that I get into a lot with contractors, because a lot of contractors don't understand that there is a cost to acquire a new customer.
Yep.
What do you think a reasonable range? I don't know if that's a good way to put it, but what's a range? What do you guys see on the high end? Like we're trying to never go over X amount on a customer acquisition cost, but we're usually in this range.
10 to 20%. That's usually a good cost. So for me, it was really interesting. I met with a lot of different marketing agencies, and they always said, well, they always ask me this common question. I'm sure a lot of people that might watch your channel have been asked this question before, and that is, how much does every job yield you? Or what is the average, your average purchase price for a job? And the reason that they're doing that is to determine what a healthy range would be to get you in there. So a cost per acquisition is always detailed. I mean, there could be so many different factors associated with that. I mean, you could even put like, I have to pay this person in order to monitor my Facebook page, and this is their hourly rate, and for every single deal I get, I can attribute this much towards that person's salary, plus the ad budget, plus the design budget, plus all these other things. It's like you can get really granular with it. But usually I would tell people around 10 to 20% of your total purchase price of your product should probably be factored into your CPA. And if you have that, you can have a fairly healthy ad budget and get out there a lot. So, I mean, I think the question becomes is, would you rather make a sale, one extra sale, and get yourself out there and known and forfeit that money almost entirely to advertising, or would you rather not do that? And just back completely off of it. And I think everybody has to ask that question for themselves. But what we found is that with our we continuously work on driving down our cost per acquisition, but it gets down to a certain point to where it's almost counterintuitive to have a low CPA, because your people don't feel like they are rewarded for it. And I think that if you reward people and you let them know, hey, you've been incredibly efficient, and I'm going to pay you more now because of how efficient you've gotten me and how low of a CPA you've gotten me. I am now going to increase my CPA, which might seem counterintuitive to me, but I want you to keep doing a phenomenal job. And that revolves more around the culture of why it is that you're advertising. And I think asking that question first before you do is really important. Why do you want to advertise?
Definitely. And so I want to talk about that first. So what is, and this is kind of a setup, right? What is the cheapest marketing channel that you get a lead from?
Knocking doors.
Knocking doors. What about a referral?
That too. Sorry.
Right.
That's obviously number
setup,
one,
right? Like it's completely right. A referral you don't pay anything for. You're not paying the canvasser. You're not paying anybody, right? Nobody's time is involved. But how do you
might be paying the client?
Yeah, but how do you get referrals? And this is where coming back to your conversation, how do you get referrals? Well, you have to do a job. You have to do a good job. And then you take that good job and you turn that person into a raving fan who is at their neighbor's dinner party, who mentions you, who is at church the following Sunday and brings you up, right? But sometimes you have to get that customer, then you get the referral, right? You have to do the work first to get the referral. So that customer acquisition cost of what you said, 10 to 20% is outside of most people's, comprehension. If you're doing a roof for $10,000, what you're saying is you want to spend up to $2,000. You'll spend up to $2,000 to acquire that customer.
Yep.
That is something that, there's a there's an old kind of business adage that the person who can pay the most for a customer will win.
Mhm.
And that is part of that. But you have to have the systems, or at least the belief that you can turn that person into a referral partner. And you guys in the structure and all of the things that you've done to be the best in the business from a, you know, from a customer satisfaction point, and from the quality of your builds and things like that. That's where, you know, hey, I'll pay $2,000 to get that customer because I'm going to turn that person into a raving fan, and that's going to lead to a long-term business. Is that?
Yeah, that's very accurate. So I think one thing that you also touched on that I wanted to expand on is that these people find you a certain way, right? And they're going to also let other people know on that platform what they did. So if you can attract the Facebook browser that all of a sudden sees your ad and does your thing, well, that person might share your post. So that person might post pictures about the roofing project that you did and tag you in it. And that's the best thing that could happen, because they're like, oh, Susie got a roof done by ProStruct Builders. That's awesome. Like, I'm going to do that too, because she makes good decisions.
Yep.
And I know her. And
Yep.
that's a big deal, is that they're always going to return to that platform. So if you get customers from Yelp, they're going to go back to Yelp and they're going to review you on Yelp. Same thing, Home Advisor, Google, any of these other platforms, whatever it is, they're going to return back to those areas and promote you in that range. So if that's an area that's a desert for you, that might be a really good place to raise your cost per acquisition, because then you can kind of flood that area a little bit more where it's normally not saturated.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. That's a great point, that you can, if something is missing, if there is a marketing channel that's missing, like we're not doing well here, push that customer acquisition cost in that specific marketing channel to build that momentum in it. And then over time, that customer acquisition cost will definitely come down, or at least the long-term value of the client the long-term value of the customer will offset that initial customer acquisition cost. That's
Right.
great, man. That's are you doing now? The goal is creating raving fans, right? So what are you doing to follow up with people on an ongoing basis through the years to stay in front of them? What special initiatives are you doing, and what do you think, what things can other contractors do to make sure that they're optimizing for those referrals in the future?
So I think just being thoughtful, that's the first thing that comes to mind. You know, everybody wants a card for their birthday. If it's handwritten, it's better, right?
Yep.
If you put their name in it, it's even better. And if it's signed by you, gosh, you're exceeding, you know, looking for the things that people won't do, the things that are not commonplace. If you meet somebody, shoot them a quick text, shoot them a video, of yourself saying, hey, Jim, it was great to meet you. I really appreciate it. You know, looking forward to talking to you in the future and building more of a relationship. You know, because people are going to be caught off guard by that. They're going to say, this guy is abnormal. And yeah, I feel like he really cares about me. And I think the fact of the matter is that you have to really care about them. You know, something like that can't be faked. You know, if your heart is in the right place, the right things will happen. So if your goal is to help people and say, you know, this is a family that might be affected, how can I help them? You know, a lot of times we've done projects that actually lost money, which would sound absurd to anybody in any sort of business. Why would you do a project that loses money? Why wouldn't you just walk away from it? Well, it's because somebody needed help, and we were willing to go out there and help them, and nobody else was. And so we did it. And you know what? Those people became like just the people that went above and beyond. Thank you so much. They'd check in with us every 6 months. They'd be like, thanks again. I was thinking of you because it was raining and it wasn't coming to my house.
Yeah.
They'd shoot us a text, you know, that'd be huge. But those personable points, you know, bringing somebody by some cookies that you made, man, that's talk about above and beyond. Who does that?
Yeah.
What kind of roofer does that? Are you kidding me? Hey, just wanted to bring you over a cake to congratulate the fact that your roof isn't leaking during this rain. Sorry, I had to keep it covered up, but it's raining right now. Here you go. You know,
That's awesome.
this is great. I'm congratulating these things with you. I'm having a win with the client.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. You know, that's a big deal to them. So remembering those certain little things. I mean, you can even automate a lot of that. I know I'm forgetful. Like, right. I have to live out my day 15 minutes at a time on a stacked calendar. So I'm very forgetful. So I need to have process is automated to remind me of these things, whether they're reminders or whether they're automated things in a CRM that initiates a task in order for somebody in my team to do something. That's a huge, huge thing. You know, a personalized card. I mean, giving away hey, it's that time again. Figured you might, utilize a $50 Home Depot gift card to do some
Yep.
renovations to the home because it's spring. Like, wow, like that person is probably going to refer you to somebody.
That's right. And it was $50, right? Like,
Right. You paid $50 for a cost per acquisition for this client.
That's right.
And they didn't even know it. But I mean, if the goal is to not be selfish and get those things, I think that the world has a great way of reciprocating thoughtful acts.
Yes.
And you put positive things out into the environment, and positive things will come back to you. If you smile at people, like, just here's a practical: smile at everybody that you meet this week. Instead of frowning, just smile at them, even if it seems forced, whatever, and see how much happier you are at the end of the week, because people are going to smile back at you. And that's going to be the environment that you live in. And that's intoxicating.
It is. And you create that. That's really the truth of it. And we're definitely living through strange times right now. And it's very easy to get caught up in what's going on, and some of the tragedies that are going on, and the theories of this and that, and how there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now that can bring us down. But reminding yourself that you can change that at any point in time. That I listened to a lot of Tony Robbins stuff years ago, and that was one of his things: change your state. Right? You can change your state. You can change your physical, what you're doing physically, that will change your yourself emotionally. And that is one of those things, like you had said, smiling. If you smile, your feelings will change. And the person that sees you smiling, their emotions can change at the same time. So that's great, man.
Yeah.
And so
human beings are the only ones that can do that, by the way. They're the only ones that can do a physical action and change the way that they emotionally feel.
Yeah. And so you guys have, like we started this show off with, is you're not even 30 years old. You've had exponential growth in your companies. Started on the roofing side, added the solar, if I'm correct. What's the greatest insight that you can share with our audience that has really helped you find success in your businesses?
Caring about your people. I think everything that I do is for my employees. Every decision that I make is for them. I think it's also important to really look at the way that you're portrayed. Look at the things that are said when you're not there. Look at the way that you interact with people. Have somebody film you for a day. Just be like, hey, you're my buddy. Can you come around and just film me for a day? And film the interactions that you have with other people. I guarantee you they'd be like, wow, I thought I was a lot less monotone than that. And it's just spicing that up, being that level of inspiration, being that level of, I can't inspire you. I can't motivate you. I can only inspire you. I can't force anybody to do anything. So I think it's creating a place for them to go and a place for them to grow. That's been really big for me within this very quick buildup for us to have success as a team, is that every decision is made with them, and there's also a place for them to go to. So kind of having like your next man up program of where are these people going to advance to? What's the next thing in the pipeline for them? How do they move to the next stage in their life with you? The majority of millionaires that exist in the world work for an organization that they don't own. So I think that's like a testament right there, is that like, you don't have to be a small business owner in order to be successful in America. You don't. The objective is to have a great team of people that are very, very high performing and high producing people that can band together and it can become the cooperative. And looking at yourself instead of a monarchy as a cooperative, then it's just like, hey, a bunch of great people can exist in the same space, and together we're a lot more powerful as a unit than if we would be separately.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great advice. So we're going to end this now. Make sure you like this, subscribe to our channel. Make sure if you comment anything, we'll get answers for you, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on iTunes. We'll get those questions answered. If you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, please post that. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you having me.
If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.